Welcome to the WakeCon Show, where we discuss housing economics and the economic forces shaping our communities. We're powered by Professor Lending, which is based in Wake Forest, North Carolina, hence Wake and Econ together. I am your professor today, Jordan Steffaniak, licensed loan originator, mortgage professor, and everything else that goes along with that. And I'm looking forward to covering a series of topics here. So this is going to be a masterclass, right? So I've watched a number of masterclasses, and you may have seen them on YouTube as well. These short, compacted scripts that work through important topics and try to teach you and educate you. And so that's one of the core of what Professor Lending is all about, is educating you and empowering you to make the best decision for your life, your family, and your future. And so in these series of episodes, we're going to cover different topics in the home buying process, particularly for first-time buyers. As you know, there is no education out there really that you get to buy a house. You just kind of jump into it. You find out you need to buy a house or want to buy a house, and then you're rushed and you have no framework for this. So the purpose of this is to give you some tools to be able to make sense of what makes sense, when does it make sense, how should you go about it, what should you look for, what should you not avoid. So I've got a couple of slides that I'm going to show here along with this. So as you see, this is going to be a 5-part series. We're going to do should you buy now, should you buy later, qualifying, the money part of it, some strategies when it comes to buying a house, and then the process. What does that look like? So in this episode, we're covering should you buy now. So as you see, should you buy now or should you wait? Since we started tracking in 1940, the data, home prices have been negative just 1 year. Every year you wait, it's a year someone else builds equity. And I believe that, and I think more people need to understand that and see that. It's shocking to me the level of people that think that home prices just always go down. They don't. They're always going up nationally. Now, there are definitely small pockets where you're going to see appreciation that doesn't always track that. We're talking national trends. On a U.S. national basis, prior to 1940, we're not tracking all this data. You're going to find there's terrible data prior to 1940 in every segment of society. So record keeping and keeping track of all this stuff, that's newer, sort of post World War II-ish, and that's when we get to track home appreciation. So by the end of this, you're going to know a couple of things: why home ownership is the number one wealth building tool, why the most common objections are actually myths, and the real cost of waiting, and it's not what you think. And you're going to find out this 1.37 million number here shortly. So why buy a home? Because buying a home is the most important financial transaction you're going to make in your entire life for most people. It's also it's key to sustainable future. It's key to a fundamentally healthy and stable family. So I've got 5 reasons here. Talk about family stability. If you have a family, if you have a wife, you have kids, you have a husband, if you have child 1, 2, 3, whatever that is, you need a place to call home. If you have children, they need a place that's their own, that's safe and stable, that they know that they can live there. They know where they're going to wake up. They know where they're going to be able to play in the backyard. They know that it's just their space. When you live in an apartment or you rent constantly, you're always subjected to potential rate hikes. That's true, I guess. Potential rate increases. Rent increases is what I mean. You're always subjected to, if you're renting a house, maybe the landlord chooses to sell that house, and then you've got to find a place to live. When you own a home, you don't have that lack of stability. You have a place to call your own. That's important for you. It's important for your spouse. It's important for your children. It's definitely really important for your children to have a place to call home. There's also this piece of generational wealth, and I'm going to show you here in a minute what that looks like. But just suffice to say, generational wealth is built in America through home ownership. There is no more important tool than owning a home to building generational wealth to pass on to you and your family. So if you care about your grandchildren, if you care about your children, if you care about your great-grandchildren, if you care about yourself, you're going to buy a home, because that is the most important way to build wealth in our society. Everything is built around it. It's subsidized, all these different ways to protect homeownership, because that's the way that people amass wealth. It's also inflation-proof investing, because it's constantly growing year over year. If you just keep cash in your bank account, it's going to sit there, do nothing. If you keep cash in a house, it's going to grow over time. And it's going to be leveraged. It's a leveraged asset. It's not just that I have $2,000. Maybe I spend $2,000 to buy this $100,000 house, and that $100,000 house then grows by a certain percentage each year, which is going to be significantly higher than if I just had $2,000 cash put in the bank in a high yield savings account. It's called leverage. It's very important to inflation proofing your investing. It's also going to give you that cost predictability. Like I said, rent increases are always possible if you're renting. If you have a fixed rate, you know exactly what your payment's going to be. And that principal and interest will never, ever, ever, ever change. Now, your homeowner's insurance, your taxes may. Let's hope not. They may change. But your principal and interest on a 30-year fixed or a 15-year fixed, whatever it is, will never change. You know exactly what your payment will be. That's amazing. You can budget properly. You can plan. You know exactly what to expect. And there are also tax advantages to owning a home. So we'll cover those in later episodes, I think. Now, in this here, did you know the average wealth gap between renters and homeowners has grown by 250% in the last 33 years? That's right, 250%. So buying a home is essential to building wealth for you and your family. So you have the average wealth gap there and the median wealth gap there. So you can see both of them are growing. That average wealth gap is significantly growing. And that's where that 1.37 million wealth gap comes in. That's the average wealth gap between a homeowner and a non-homeowner. 1.37 million. That shows you not only generational wealth, but the inflation-proof investing that I mentioned. This is how America is set up for success. You have to buy a house. So if you're on the fence, you're thinking maybe I'll buy a house in a couple of years, don't. You need to buy a house now. There's all sorts of reasons people don't want to do it. You need to buy a house now. You need to be thinking about those things. Why? Because you need to be protecting your finances. You need to be providing stability, but you need to be protecting your finances. The longer you wait, the more difficult it is to get in, and we'll talk about that too. So why do some not buy? Let's go across some home buying haunts, right? So I've got 6 here. I need 20% down payment. People think that it's not true. People say I need to be settled down first. People think that it's not true. People think I need great credit score first. People think that not true. Think it's going to take a lot of time. Not true. They think their bank is the best place to get a mortgage. Not true. I'll time the market and save by waiting. You know how many times I've heard that? It's insane, and every time they lose. So what's the truth here? You actually only need 3% down to buy a house, your first house, and sometimes 0% down. There are also grants and other options to make sure that you need 0% down. So in reality, you almost never need any money to come to closing. Now, it depends on certain factors, where you live, how much money you make, what your credit score is. These sorts of things can influence this. But at worst case, 3% down. Worst case, FHA is 3.5%. USDA, VA, both 0%. So stop buying into this myth of I need 20% down. You don't. You don't need that. You need very little money to get in the game. I need to be settled down first. Again, you need a stable monthly payment and a place to call home. People think that maybe I'll move. Well, what if you don't? Then you just rented for X number of years, wasted all this money, and now the homes are more expensive. And you could have had a place to call your own. Why? If you're going to stay somewhere for at least a year, why would you not buy a house? Well, I have to pay real estate agent fees. You're going to come out fine if you plan to stay there for at least a year. Trust me. Okay. I need great credit first. No. You don't. We can get you qualified with very low credit scores. Now, obviously, if you're going down below 500, there's got to be a lot of compensating factors to make that work. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this puzzle. The point here is you may have a bad credit score. You may have 620. You may have a 580. You may have a 640, and you feel like that disqualifies you. No, it doesn't. Let's talk. Let's see what all the options are for you. And then let's put together a plan to be able to fix it. I had a client, came in, 580, put together a plan, fix it. Now he's at 620, he can buy. So given his parameters of what he wanted to do, he had to have at least a 620 to do it. We got it done. 3 months, less than 3 months. So all of this is about being strategic and actually understanding what your options are. Too many people shut off the conversation because they feel like I can't get there. You'll never get there if you don't talk with an expert who can help you walk through plan and strategy and understand what to do and how to do it. You think it's going to take a lot of time? No, it's not. Application can take 10 minutes or less, and then we can take care of the rest. Obviously, you're going to have to be involved in some of the aspects, but we can really take care of it. It's not that hard. Your bank is the best place to get your mortgage? Unlikely. So the data here, which is in the small font, it's basically they did a study. Brokers actually save you on average $10,000 compared to banks. $10,000 compared to banks. Why? Because they have access to a lot more options and they don't have all this overhead that a retail bank has, and so they can pass on the savings. So don't just naturally think bank's a place to go. You can go to a mortgage broker like me. People think I'll time the market, save by waiting. No, like I said, since 1940, prices have only been negative 1 year. You're not going to time the market. I know you think you will, but you're not an expert, and suddenly the home prices, even in this current environment that I'm in right now, 2026, feel like the last couple of years, not been a lot of home price appreciation in my area, Raleigh, Durham, not a lot of home price appreciation. Still going up on the whole. Even in a cool market. You didn't time it. Don't think you will. Okay, here's the cost of waiting. This is a really powerful example. Really helpful for seeing the numbers. So I'm going to assume 3% annual appreciation in this example, which is pretty average, a little bit below average. I'm going to assume that you're paying $1,500 a month in rent. I'm going to assume in these three scenarios, I'm going to put three different ones side by side, that the rates are actually dropping by 0.375% per year, which is very aggressive given our economic environment here in 2026. I don't think that's going to happen, but let's say it did, just for the purposes of saying maybe it is worth waiting to get a better rate. Let's see what happens here. So if you bought today, you'd pay $300,000 for this house. Let's say your rate's 6.5, assuming all these different factors are true. So that would make your monthly principal and interest payment $1,839. How much rent were you paying while you were waiting? $0. And you're going to gain some equity here, and we're going to show you that. Because if you wait 1 year, that purchase price, if it appreciates 3%, is $309,000. Your rate did go down to 6.125. That makes your payment $1,821. That is $18 cheaper. But you paid $18,000 in rent over that time, and you gained $0 in equity. Okay? Now, I guess I should have fixed these numbers here so you can see this. This should be 9,000 and it should be 18, or it should be something like 18,000. But the net cost here is accurate. You just spent $26,000 essentially because you decided to wait. Because that's that $18,000 plus this $9,000. I mean, what are you thinking here? Here, purchase price goes up to 318,270. Rate's now 5.75, your payment's 1802. That is, what is that? $27, $37 cheaper a month, but you just paid $36,000 in rent, and you gain no equity. And I guess waiting a year or two, you did gain some equity. So I should add that into my slide here. Would you want to invest $18 a month compared here for a $9,000 return in year one? And that's just equity, right? I didn't count the rent that you paid, that you just threw away. Because remember, it's not just equity built. You're paying down a mortgage balance. You're paying nothing. You're paying your landlord's mortgage. Why in the world would you want to wait 1 year or 2 years? It doesn't make sense. It does not make financial sense to wait and just watch that purchase price grow. Even if rates go down aggressively, it does not make sense. Okay, you're building equity, $9,000 compared here, $18,000 compared here, in your pocket, plus you're paying down a mortgage balance. Okay, so that should tell you, buy a house as soon as you can, because waiting will cost you money. All right, that's it for this time. Definitely tune in the other episodes. We're going to cover all the other topics.